Welcome back. This is video number 2 of how I built my first tree net. If you haven't seen the first one, you're probably going to be confused as to what the heck is going on here. So I'd recommend to go back and watch that. But if you've already seen it, then let's continue. Okay, so that should take care of the perimeters. These two angles from here, for some reason, are much looser than this one here. I'm pulling directly here and then tensioning 2 out over here. So these corners are a little bit less, but the ratchet straps are as tight as I can get them. And so now I guess it's time to start with doing the fills. And since I'm going to just be doing the chaos method, I guess, or whatever they call it, chaos or like insanity or whatever, I'm just gonna pick somewhere to start. And I'm gonna pull off a really long section of rope for this because the first weave is gonna really kind of go all over the place and not cross too much. So I'm gonna pull off like probably 4 arm loads, maybe even more. I got a long way to go to get this thing started, and then cut it with the knife. I'm not going to heat any of these things, maybe later. And I'm going to start, what the heck, we'll just go here and we're going to clove hitch right onto it, leave myself a pretty big tail, and then do the 2 half hitches. This is to show how I'm starting. So it's just using the rope to tie in a clove hitch. Clove hitch looks like this. I tighten that down, and then I put a half hitch into it, which pulls the rope end down. I do that twice, and then from there I can start weaving. And then whenever I get to the perimeter again, I'm going to do that girth hitch, but this time with 2 wraps versus just 1. And maybe we go here, so I wrap it once, pull all this cord out, and we'll see. This is my very first time building one of these, so I've been super excited about this. I don't know if this is a good idea or not to do the double wrap, but my assumption is that it will act sort of like a prusik and not slip down the perimeter line as much. And also, I'm not sure, do I need to be pulling on this super tight or if I just need to get it more or less, but that's pretty darn good. I'm happy with that. So then I'm gonna just come kind of over here to this side, do the same thing. So I'm going to do a double wrap, get it pulled in nice and tight, get all this string over. This is quite a lot, but I think it's okay. Well, that's as tight as I can go. And yeah, for these perimeters, I'm just girth hitching. I'm not doing cloves like a lot of people do. The reason I'm not doing clove, this is the girth hitch that I've been using, and this is the clove hitch that I've been using. If you can look, the girth hitch always comes out and both ropes are being directional toward the center of the web, whereas the clove hitch comes in and then you have to go under, because if you pull over the top, it undoes the knot, and so you end up having something that's just not as smooth. There's a drop from here down, and this goes flat straight across. This is biting really, really well, maybe better than the girth hitch. I really love the girth hitch instead, but we're gonna see which one holds up over the long haul. So I'm hoping that this is a better idea, though time will tell if this is a good idea or not. So I'm just gonna keep going here, and we'll be back. That's already kind of loose. I think there's going to be a lot of learning here. Okay, so now I've gotten to the end of that section, and I'm going to connect these two. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, and I'm going to connect it via the double fisherman and then continue weaving from here. So the double fisherman, throw that in, leaving yourself a couple nice little tails so that any kind of slip or anything like that is going to not pull the rope apart in the end. Get your double fishermans in there, tighten it all down, and you're ready to continue weaving. And let's see, I'm gonna go kind of this way now. So this is the weaving process that I'm doing here. And essentially I'm always doing 2 wraps. So every time I get to a cross, like here, I wrap 1 time and then 2 times. And then I go to the next one, 1, 2. Then I keep going 1 and then 2. And I'm trying to always intersect a line, and I'm trying to avoid crossing where there's already a cross. Sometimes you can't help it, and I don't know, maybe there's a better method, but that's the weaving process that I have so far. While I was messing around here, pushing down, I felt something shift, and this knot right here slipped. Now, I may have really screwed up by girth hitching most of this and not tying clove hitches. I'm really hoping that I didn't. Anyway, I'm gonna finish this entire spool, which maybe is 1 or 2 more times, and I'm gonna girth hitch everything. And then I'm going to switch colors, and I'm gonna go with black next and start to weave in with the black. And I'm gonna do, every time I hit a perimeter, I'm gonna do those with the clove hitch, which I really hate this. With the rope going in 2 different directions, I really don't like this. But I'm gonna see what holds up better, because this did slip already. So that kind of sucks. I already had a slip, so we'll see. Okay, so that finishes up 1 roll of 50 meter, and skeleton looks pretty good. I'm actually now, for the first time ever, going to try and sit in a space net, and not only a space net, but a space net that I built myself. So this may be comedy gold right here. Ready, ladies and gentlemen? Here we go. Okay. Oh, that's holding, which is good. Yeah, there it is. Well, I haven't smashed into the sand yet, but we got a long way to go. You don't want to hang out like this too much. That's a lot of pressure from those little strings. Everything's holding really tight. I don't see sagging on everything. A little bit of sagging, but yeah, for the most part, it's pretty awesome. So let's move on to black. Now we've gone through, that's 50 meters on here. The black is filled in quite nice. I'm starting to get like little tight areas like in here, stuff like this. I'm trying to avoid that and get these holes. And people are saying if you can get your fist through it, it's too big. If you can get a fist, you can get a foot. So we've got a lot of fill to do. That's where we're at the moment. All right, my wife is gonna try her first time getting into the net.
Dude, that's awesome.
Cool. Should we do the test of 2? Will it hold 2? Yes, let's do it. And now I'm gonna go in at 2. This could be a real comedy. You scared?
It's okay.
Yeah, that holds. Let's see.
I hope we don't break our backs.
Break or not.
It's awesome to look up in the palm trees.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. As I have been going under and creating this gap, it's also doing stuff like this, which I'm not a big fan of. However, I've now started doing this. When I go under the direction I want to go, I loop over the top. And when I loop that over the top, it gives me just a tiny gap, and it actually pulls the knot together. But I like that. That looks nice and clean. So now I have in about 75 meters, I guess, of cord. It's getting quite dense. There's still some holes that are fitting my fist through, so I think I'm gonna have to keep going, but overall, it's filled in quite nice. And yeah, it's so much smaller than I expected it to be, so pretty incredible. 3 by 3 is not really all that big. Impossible for me to lay down completely and like stretch. Maybe at a diagonal? Not really. It's been an interesting process. I haven't run into too many issues. I think that these girth hitches that I did are probably not the best idea. The clove hitch seems to be biting much more. And with this new kind of like twist over method, yeah, I just think it looks a lot better actually. So if this was gonna stay permanently fixed up, I think the girth hitch would be just fine. But the fact that it's gonna come down is probably not optimal. And yeah, you can see I can stand on it, walk around. It hurts the feet because it's not super dense, but it's possible. And everything kind of like shifts and balances. But yeah, you're definitely getting toes and like heel and everything kind of falling through. So I want to definitely make it more dense. So I will weave in another 25 meters to give it a total of 100 meters on this. But for today, I'm kind of done. Okay, so that's kind of the end of day one. Back out now for day two. The net has been set back up and it actually tensioned out really well. I don't notice any slipping. Girth hitches did pretty well. I am noticing like perhaps this is just a weaving problem on my part, but there are a couple sections where the weave is like clumping together and so the twists are getting really tight. I'm using a lot of cord, but we're not closing in the weave so much. This is kind of what I'm talking about. I have a big hole here, really big, and then I have all of this clumping going on in this section. So I get really thick, but I have just little tiny openings. And I think my problem is, like for example, this line comes down, then it wraps. I probably should have gone this direction, but when I come here, as it gets tensioned, it pulls everything in here together. So this is just gonna be something like that slides back up and then this hole opens and it's working a little bit better. I can slide this over. Maybe this is just gonna be an issue with nets which you take up and down. You see now that makes it look a little bit better, but I still have this big mess over here. So maybe it's part of my technique, but I get this clumping and I feel like I'm wasting a lot of cordage in these lumps. So we're gonna have to kind of figure out how to adjust for that. But I have one more section of the black to weave in and then we'll see where we go from there. This is a problem that I'm running into is right here. So as I was weaving across, I came and continued this way. And now perhaps it's because it's taking it down, but this is slid down. So I have this really big hole. But the thing is, if I will slide everything back up and then I have the same thing happening over here. If I pull that over, now that hole is gone and it's much smaller. Now I'm going to run another black through this thing and I'm going to try something a little bit different. I think for this time I'm actually going to tie at every junction a clove hitch. It's going to take a lot longer, but I'm curious what that's going to do. And since this is kind of an experimental net, I'm going to go ahead and try this out. So I started here and cloved hitch at every single point, and that definitely will not shift. It takes an incredibly long time, but the nice thing is when I get to different angles, that cannot shift in and pull in tight, whereas had I gone around here and up here, this can slip over onto this. So maybe you don't need it all the time, but maybe some runs. So it takes a lot longer. I'm not sure about that.